So this is basically the video for part 5 of our value line project. To start, I'm just going to run through the questions that we were given to answer for our value line project and just give a brief explanation of the calculations that we did. So to start, question 1 asked for the recent price, the PE ratio, the PE trailing ratio, the PE median ratio, the relative PE ratio, and the dividend yield. To get those, we basically just looked up what the current data was showing. The recent price was $350.74 per share. The PE ratio was 30.93. The PE trailing was 30.13, and the PE median was 29.5. In order to find the relative PE, we had to perform a calculation. Since Facebook trades on NASDAQ, we looked up the PE ratio of NASDAQ and determined that it was 28.9. From there, to find the relative PE ratio, it was just a matter of dividing the Facebook PE by the NASDAQ PE, and we got a relative PE ratio of 1.056. And finally, the dividend yield for Facebook is not applicable here because Facebook has never paid dividends. Moving on to question 2. Similar to question 1, it was just a matter of looking up numbers for the most part. It was asking for the 2021 low and high for the stock price. In order to find this, we just looked at the historical data to determine it and found the low to be $245.64 and the high to be $355.64 for 2021. Now moving on, question 3 was asking for the earnings per share. This is calculated by dividing the quantity net income minus net dividends and dividing that by the number of shares. As stated, Facebook pays no dividends. So in essence, the calculation was just the net income divided by the number of shares. And this was found to be $11.96. This also makes the dividends declared per share not applicable. The book value per share is calculated by dividing the quantity of shareholders' equity minus preferred equity and dividing that by the total number of outstanding common shares. After looking up those numbers and performing the calculation, we found this to be 5540. There were around 2.8 billion shares outstanding for Facebook, and for the rest of the explanation of our calculations and our value line project, I'm going to hand it over to my group mates.
Thank you, Shrikanth. My name is John, and I will be continuing the analysis of our value line calculations for the chosen stock of Facebook. So to continue with question number 3, we were asked to calculate the average annual price earnings or PE ratio of the stock. And so to find this number, we took the current stock price divided by the earnings per share. So in this case, we found the most recent stock price from Yahoo Finance, and this happened to be $350.74. And then we divided this number by the current 2021 estimate of the earnings per share for the stock. And on the value line page, we can see that the earnings per share for 2021 is 11.75, and then the projected earnings per share for 2022 is 13.5. So this number will be right in the middle of these two, as we're currently in July of 2021. So this number is around 13.12. So dividing these two numbers will yield a current average annual PE ratio of around 26.73, and this is right in line with the value line's current estimate of 25.0 for the average annual PE ratio. And moving on to the relative PE ratio, like Shrikanth already explained, this is just the ratio of the firm's current PE to the PE of the overall market, which is in this case the NASDAQ for Facebook. And Facebook's current relative PE ratio is 1.056, which means it has surpassed the previous PE value, which could actually mean that the stock is currently overvalued, some investors might say. Moving on to number 3, again, the average annual dividend yield is does not apply since Facebook does not pay dividends. And then just one other sample calculation we did was on Facebook's return on their shareholders' equity. And this number is calculated by dividing the net income of the stock by the shareholders' equity. So in this situation, the net income for Facebook for the year 2021 is in millions, 61,200, and dividing this by the shareholders' equity, again in millions, of 290,000, yields a return on shareholders' equity of about 21%. And again, comparing this number to the value line projected number for 2021 of about 21.5%. So we're right in line with that. So with that being said, I'm going to pass this on to our final group project member, Fortune, for the rest of the calculations.
Hello, my name is Fortune Ihaza, and I will be briefly explaining the calculations we made for our value line project, Facebook. In order to complete part 5, we were told to make some calculations, and I will start off with what we found out for number 4, which was told to complete the capital structure box. And in order to do so, we searched the long-term debt on Google, which was nothing. And we also searched what it will be doing 5 years, which was nothing. And the pension assets, which had no defined benefit pension plan. The common stock, which came out to be 2,847,669,951 shares. And it also had a market cap of 863 billion, which was a large cap. And also, we were told to find the quarterly revenues for months of March 31st, June 31st, September 31st, December 31st, and the full year. For March 31st, the quarterly revenue came out to be 26,171. For June 31st, it came out to be 28,000. For September 31st, it came out to be 30,000. For December 31st, it came out to be 30,000. And for the full year, it came out to be a total of 114,171. Thanks.